Greetings. Welcome to the Captive Desk. I came across a 6-part video series from a creationist claiming scientific evidence for God. So let's take a listen to what Farmer Josh has to say. And yes, it is Farmer Josh. The only information he gives about himself is he is an apologist and an organic farmer.
So this is going to be a 6-week class. So we'll meet for tonight and then the next 5 Tuesdays. We're going to do a deep dive into some of the scientific evidence for the existence of God. It's going to feel a lot like a deep dive, but in reality, we aren't even going to scratch the surface because God's goodness is everywhere in every animal, in every living thing, in the things that aren't even living.
Oh wow, the alarms are going off all over the Captive Desk. I think I better call for some backup. Hang on. I gotta open the window. Yep, there we go. Alright. I put up the lobster signal. He usually responds fairly quickly. As long as he doesn't run into any logical fallacies along the way.
Deconverted Man here.
Hello, Deconverted Man. Thank you for getting here so quickly.
Hello, Captive Desk. I got here as soon as I could. Thanks for leaving the window open this time.
You're welcome. I am sorry about the window thing. I assumed you would use the door. My bad as a skeptic. I shouldn't assume you would use the door. But please, have a seat at the Captive Desk, Deconverted Man. I was listening to Farmer Josh in this video, claiming scientific evidence for God. I thought I've heard this before. My suspicions set off the alarm I just had installed while your crew was here installing the lobster signal, so I thought I'd better call you in just in case there will be any logical fallacies coming up.
Sure. Let's have a look.
Number one, that my hope and prayer is that when we finish, your sense of awe and wonder of who God is just explodes like wildfire. It has for me in doing the research for this class. I mean, God's creation is just ridiculously cool. It's amazing. And so I hope that you leave as excited as I have been putting all this stuff together. Romans 1, which is up here on the screen on the cover of your binder there, says, "For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived in the things that have been made." So what's odd about that is Paul writes that, and he says that we can see the invisible things about God, which seems like it might be a contradiction. That is until we get out in nature, right? And when you get to see a snowy mountain scene or a sunset at the beach, or you get to see a bee sucking nectar in a patch of wildflowers.
Look at the Facebook! Look at the forking Facebook! Oh my word, the Facebook!
Look at the lau worm, spending its life cycle, eating its way out from children's eyeballs, leaving them blind. Look at the suffering, disease, starvation, natural disasters.
So the second thing that I would like to accomplish in this class is I want to dispel the cultural narrative that faith and science are pitted against each other, and that faith is a blind faith that goes against reason. That could not be further from the truth. We are called to love God with all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our mind, and all of our strength, right? We are not called to check our brains at the door when we get to church on Sunday morning. So to say that faith is believing in something in spite of or contrary to the evidence completely goes against the Word of God. And so I hope to make the case in this class that having a Christian framework actually allows us to do better science, and that taking an anti-supernatural stance has been a hindrance to good science.
Hey everybody, I just want to let you know, we don't need to go ahead and explore that rainbow there, because that's from God. Also, thunder? Yeah, that's from God too, so we don't need to check into that. Lightning's from God, don't need to worry about that. The heliocentric model, that's totally true, because the church said so, and the church knows, because God told the church, so we don't need to explore that at all, don't need any telescopes. So, yeah, let's keep going with the supernatural ideas, everybody. These diseases, totally caused by God, so we don't need to look into them. Don't bother washing your hands. Jesus said don't worry about it.
First thing I want to cover is the moving goalpost of atheism. Used to be that atheism, where somebody was an atheist, was somebody who did not believe that God exists. They believed that there is no God. But over the last couple of decades, really, that has begun to shift to this idea that I don't have a belief in God. Now, why does that matter? Because atheists are trying to shift the burden of proof, right? What they would tell you is that I don't have to be an Santa Clausist or an fairyist or an Easter Bunnyist, right? If you believe in Santa Claus, it's incumbent upon you to prove that Santa Claus exists, right? It's incumbent upon you to prove that God exists. I don't have to prove that there is no God, right? But the problem is that they're shifting the burden of proof. And I just want to challenge you to challenge them in that space.
This is creationist wordplay. An atheist doesn't believe in God because there is no good evidence for a God. And you, Farmer Josh, are supposed to be presenting evidence for God. This is not off to a good start. Good thing I called you in, Deconverted Man. As someone who has deconverted, can you explain to Farmer Josh what you think atheism is?
No, it's still the same thing. Not believing in God or believing there isn't a God is basically the same thing, just differently worded. Beliefs don't have requirements for burdens of proof. So whether you believe there's no God or you don't believe in God, it's equally the same at the end of the day. The burden is absent from both positions. If you say there's no God, then you acquire the burden of proof. The definition, maybe you could say that's changed over time, but I think we've just clarified it. Regardless, it's not shifting the goalpost at all. The goalpost here is you guys haven't met your burden of proof, and until you have, we're going to not believe you.
Now, there's two broad categories of science. There's operational science and there's forensic science. Operational science is dropping an apple, measuring the acceleration of gravity. You do that over and over and over again. Eventually you realize every time I do this, it happens the same way, and so then we have a scientific law. That's operational science. Forensic science is what you probably would think it is, like forensics at a crime scene. It's, okay, here's what we have now. We got to figure out the cause that got us this effect that we have. So it's looking at things in the past and reasoning about the evidence that's in front of us and coming to conclusions about what caused the effect. You with me?
Oh yes, I'm with you, Farmer Josh. I've been sensing Ken Ham since your first words. Rip off.
And so I started to teach them how to think about science and, the difference between observational science, using your five senses in the present that develops our technology, and then talking about historical science, beliefs about the past.
Some other foundations that we need to cover here. Arguments for the existence of God. Some of these I'm going to kind of move quickly through because the goal is not to teach you every one. The goal is just to kind of help you begin to think about and hopefully inspire you to say, hey, I'd really love to dive into more resources on this. And we have the rest of our lives to keep exploring the goodness of God. So there's a cosmological argument, the fine-tuning argument, the teleological argument, the moral argument. There are others, but these are some of the main ones. The cosmological argument is an argument from beginnings. If the universe and all of nature had a beginning, then it had what? A beginner, right? So that the cosmological argument is an argument from beginnings, and this has taken different forms over millennia that philosophers and theologians have wrestled with these things. One form of that is what's called the unmoved mover. You remember from science class that objects at rest tend to stay at rest, and so if something is moving, something caused it to move. Well, there can't be an infinite regression of causes for those movements. That's one form of it. Unchanging changer, it's okay that like we're just kind of flying through this. That's intentional. Unchanging changer, same premise. Change has to be caused by something, and there can't be an infinite regression of change. An uncaused causer, which we are going to focus a little bit more on. An infinite regress of contingent beings is not possible. You and I are contingent beings. That means that we are dependent on things outside of ourselves in order to have life. If there was no oxygen, we aren't here, right? We are dependent on things apart from ourselves. Now, us in this room would say we are dependent on God. Every breath that we have is given to us because he sustains us. But there can't be an infinite regress of contingent beings. At some point, there has to be a non-contingent, a self-existent being that we would know as God. And an infinite regress of time is impossible.
So Farmer Josh is presenting philosophical arguments for God, not scientific evidence. I won't bother addressing the arguments for God because it's been done many times over and because this video is supposed to be about scientific evidence for God that so far has been lacking. I am going to ask a friend of the captive desk, however, to address the claim that an infinite regress back in time is impossible. Grayson, from base theory, is an infinite regress back in time impossible?
I think that time can be logically infinite into the past. I don't think there's any logical or mathematical contradiction. William Lane Craig, the most popular proponent of the Kalam cosmologic argument, says multiple times there is no logical or mathematical inconsistency with an infinite past. He has said this multiple times. He says that he has a metaphysical issue with it, but he says it's not a logical or mathematical or physical issue. He says it's metaphysical.
Thank you, Grayson.
The fine-tuning argument says this: whatever is finely tuned had a fine tuner. Premise 2, the universe is finely tuned for life to exist. Atheist scientists affirm this. You with me? All the scientific evidence that we're going to look at is affirmed by atheist scientists. We're just going to teach you how to think about the conclusions, look at the effect, and reason to a different cause that actually makes a lot more sense. So the universe is finely tuned for life to exist. Therefore, the universe had a fine tuner.
Farmer Josh claims atheist scientists affirm a fine tuner. Yet, he says he's going to teach you how to reach a different conclusion. That's a lot of word salad there, Farmer Josh. What physicists say is there are 4 fundamental forces that govern the universe, and a beginner isn't one of them. If the universe was different, it would be different. But there is no universe to compare it to as a standard. We only have our universe to examine.
My response to fine-tuning is always that if things were different, things would be different. During the early universe, things were very different than they are today. Very much.
I concur, Deconverted Man. Physicists do know that the universe has changed a lot, from the Big Bang to a plasma universe to expansion to stars forming and exploding, and in the end, the universe will run out of usable energy because it's fine-tuned to fail in the end, I guess. But let's not just agree with each other, Deconverted Man, and accept what Farmer Josh is claiming either, lest we be poor skeptics. Let's see what these atheist scientists have to say about fine-tuning and a fine-tuner.
I should maybe say that historically, thinking back, I was never impressed with the degree of fine-tuning of the observed universe until the discovery of the non-zero vacuum energy density, the cosmological constant. Before that, people talked about fine-tunings like energy levels in carbon, and they had to be just right for nucleosynthesis.
And why didn't that impress you?
The way they were. Well, what didn't impress me about it is that they always involved, to some extent, the details of life as we know it. And it seemed to me that we don't understand life well enough to be able to know that if those details didn't happen the way they did, maybe life would evolve through some completely different set of channels, completely different form of life, perhaps. So it wasn't clear to me whether the parameters of nature were fine-tuned for life, or it was just a question of our kind of life being fine-tuned to the physics in which we've evolved.
I think it looks like the constants in nature are fine-tuned for life to exist, but we don't know if another set of constants would allow another kind of life to exist. We don't know enough. It's part of the problem of the anthropic principle. It's really a principle based on ignorance, not knowledge. It's based on saying we don't know the answer. We don't know enough about the universe to know if there's a fundamental theory that says it has to be this way, or if these weird coincidences are there because we happen to be measuring them. We happen to be in the universe that measures them. It sounds like a tautology. It's not. I mean, it sounds, you have to look at more broadly and say, there I think have been a number of times in the history of physics over the last century where crazy things came out and people said, well, there's no fundamental explanation. Maybe we just have to throw up in our hands and use this anthropic argument. And they've been wrong.
To allow this picture that I told you about of forming stars, forming the heavy elements, blowing them out in supernova, that allow us to be here. So that's the fine-tuning issue. And a lot of people think that that's evidence that the universe was very well designed. Because why should those forces be that way? And physics has no explanation as of yet for why the strength of those forces should be that. There's no principle that we can say, well, if there's this general principle and it has to be that way. Einstein wanted to find something like that, and we're still looking for something, but we haven't found anything. So theologians, for instance, like to take that as an example of or an argument for why the universe is designed. But what's happened in the last 10, 20 years is that as physicists, cosmologists have been investigating the origin of our universe, we seem to have come upon this necessity for there to be other universes. So most of the modern theories of cosmology involve some kind of idea that there are many universes. It's not an idea that people have invented to explain the fine-tuning. In fact, no one in the past, a few people did, but not a lot of people thought much about the fine-tuning until pretty recently.
So why do you think it just suddenly happened that physicists are talking about multiple universes?
The idea of multiple universes came up in different theories of cosmology that have been developed, but physicists haven't gone to say, gee, how can we explain fine-tuning? We have to justify this multiverse. It went the other way. Physicists have come upon the idea of the multiverse by developing their theories. And they say, oh, this theory seems to predict other universes.
So let's go to the second argument, the teleological argument from fine-tuning. I'm very happy to admit right off the bat, this is the best argument that the theists have when it comes to cosmology. That's because it plays by the rules. You have phenomena, you have parameters of particle physics and cosmology, and then you have two different models, theism and naturalism, and you want to compare which model is the best fit for the data. I applaud that general approach. Given that, it is still a terrible argument. Given that, it is still a terrible argument. Given that, it is still a terrible argument. Given that, it is still a terrible argument.
Energy is not created or destroyed, but only transformed, and that's true. Energy is not created or destroyed, but only transformed.
Matter energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Farmer Josh says that's true. He agrees with the science. Yet somehow it goes over his empty head that something that cannot be created nor destroyed, that makes up all the matter in the universe, excludes your fine-tuner, your big banger, your first causer, and your God. I don't think you thought that one out too well, Farmer Josh. I skipped through Farmer Josh at high speed to spare the audience Farmer Josh listing all the scientific discoveries that were later confirmed by scientists and are not evidence of God. They are evidence of good science explaining the universe. Are we going to get some scientific evidence for God, Farmer Josh? The video is almost over. What do you think, Deconverted Man?
Present any actual empirical evidence, repeatable tests, or anything that's actually scientific, supported by peer-reviewed, within, like, I don't know, a science journal or something. Instead, what we are going to do is present really, really bad arguments.
And so what you're actually going to see is that atheists and naturalists are the ones with huge evidence gaps that require way more blind faith in order to believe in it.
Okay, so faith is bad, but less faith is good. According to him, atheism has a lot of faith, so that's really bad. But Christianity still has some faith, so that's not as good. What we need to do is go down to where there's no faith at all required, and that's the thing that's going to be true somehow. Even though having faith in something or not doesn't validate or invalidate the thing in question, but having lots of faith is bad. You don't want to do that. So we should try to have as little faith as possible. But that would make us skeptics, which makes us not believe in God, which makes us then again atheists. So I'm not sure how anything works anymore, but that's what we should try to do. Have as little faith as possible.
Hugh Ross, who's an astrophysicist, wrote this: in the first minuscule fraction of a second, so less than a second after the Big Bang, after the moment of creation, the universe contained a ratio of about 10 billion plus 1 nucleons, which is protons and neutrons, to every 10 billion anti-nucleons. Immediately, the anti-nucleons annihilated the nucleons, generating an enormous burst of energy. Eventually, the nucleons left over and dispersed from this blast formed all the galaxies and stars that make up the universe today. If this initial slight excess of nucleons over anti-nucleons were any smaller, the universe would lack the ordinary matter, which is matter comprised of protons, neutrons, and electrons, necessary for the subsequent formation of galaxies, stars, and heavy elements essential for life. If the excess were any greater, any galaxies that formed would condense and trap radiation so efficiently and tightly as to prevent the formation of individual stars. Now, so 10 billion to 10 billion plus 1 to kind of help us think about what that ratio, how finely tuned that is. If I were to take 1 million sheets of paper and stack them up, they would be 328 feet tall, the height of the Statue of Liberty. Now, in comparison, down here, the International Space Station orbits the Earth at about 254 miles above sea level. 10 billion sheets of paper is nearly 3 times that distance, right? And then this is our ratio. This is how finely tuned that ratio of nucleons to anti-nucleons has to be in order for us to be here today. That is incredibly fine-tuned, but we ain't even scratched the surface yet. It gets crazy. So in the book, A Comprehensive Guide to Science and Faith, it says this: the universe must be fine-tuned to provide not only a sufficient quantity of nucleons, but also a precise number of electrons. Unless the number of electrons is equivalent to the number of protons, right, they have to be exactly the same number at the start. To an accuracy of 1 part in 10 to the 37 or better, electromagnetic forces in the universe would have so overcome gravitational forces that galaxies, stars, and planets would never have formed. Now again, we're talking extraordinary numbers at this point, so it's really helpful to give us some illustrations to understand how finely tuned this is. This is how finely tuned the accuracy of 1 in 10 to the 37 is. If we were to take the entire North American continent, that's not just the United States, that's Canada, Alaska, Mexico, all the Central American continents, if we were to take the continent, the North American continent, and cover it in dimes, and now stack those dimes to the moon, which is 239,000 miles. We're not done yet. Now do that 1 million more times on a continent the size of North America, and then put a red X on one of those dimes, stir them all up, and put a blindfold on somebody and tell them to go out and find the dime. The odds that that person finds that dime is the odds that this happened by chance.
Look at the dimes! Look at the pieces of paper!
Look at the dimes. Look at the pieces of paper. Oh, Farmer Josh, you have gone on and on about how fine-tuned the universe is. Then you throw it out the window and say something idiotic like it didn't happen by chance. The whole idea of explaining the universe and the constants that govern it shows it's not by chance. That's what fine-tuning is. That it happened by chance is just a creationist talking point. The universe unfolds following the fundamental laws. It's not by chance or magic or how many dimes you stack up. That is the kind of nonsense you believe in, Farmer Josh.
Yes, Captive Desk. I think you're right. It's a lot of repeating the same things.
Yeah, Deconverted Man. It looks like Farmer Josh is not going to present any scientific evidence for God. I think we can call it a wrap on this video, Deconverted Man. And looking ahead, I may just skip to video number 4 in the series, because the next 2 videos are look at the planets and look at the water. Farmer Josh thinks look at the trees and the rocks and the water and the dimes. That dimes thing sounds real familiar too. And anything else he can name are additional fine-tuning arguments when it's the same bad, best argument theists have, saying science has proven their God when it hasn't. As anyone or anything, even a puddle, can look around and think everything was made just for them. Until we are gone and the universe goes on without us. I'm also getting this weird, creepy feeling. I just can't quite put my finger on.
Does truth exist? Does God exist? Are miracles possible? And is the New Testament true?
Does truth exist? Does God exist? Are miracles possible? And is the New Testament true?
And some scientists call this the Big Bang, and I believe in the Big Bang. I just know who banged it, right?
You guys don't believe in the Big Bang? I believe in the Big Bang. I just know who banged it.
The cosmological argument is an argument from beginnings. If the universe and all of nature had a beginning, then it had what? A beginner, right?
Which means world or universe, and it says if the universe had a beginning, then there must be a beginner.
There is a moral law. Therefore, there is a moral lawgiver, which we would know as God. If anything is wrong, murdering millions of Jews in the Holocaust, if that's wrong, then God exists.
It says if there's one thing morally wrong out there, just one, like it's wrong to torture babies for fun, or it's wrong to murder 6 million people in a Holocaust, or it's wrong to shoot people at a club, which happened last night, not far from here.
Without a cause. So if the universe began, it had a beginner. So what does this tell us about the cause? If all space, time, and matter had a beginning, it tells us that this creator is spaceless, timeless, immaterial, extremely powerful, intelligent, personal, self-existent, and without limits.
Something outside of space, time, and matter. In other words, the cause must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful to create the universe out of nothing, personal in order to choose to create, because to go from a state of nothingness to a state of creation, someone had to make a choice, and only persons can make choices. The being would also have to have a mind to make a choice. Now, when you think about a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent cause, who do you think of? God. You say, well, how do you know it's the Christian God, Frank? We don't.
Why? How do you win the lottery? How do you increase the odds that you win the lottery? You buy a bunch of lottery tickets. A multiverse increases the probabilistic resources that makes sense of this incredible fine-tuning. Right? If there's an infinite number of universes out there, then these probabilities shrink down to nothing. Oh yeah, now it's real probable that we have life in one of these particular universes. The problem is there's no evidence for that whatsoever. There's no evidence for it. And we couldn't even as science, like it's not even possible if these different universes existed out there, they don't touch ours, so there's no way that we could even empirically verify that they're out there. It's not even possible. Right? So the multiverse is science's attempt to try and shrink these probabilistic resources to make sense and eliminate God.
And so what some scientists have suggested in recent years is there are multiple universes out there. In order to avoid the implication of design, they're going to say if there's a number of universes out there, billions of them, then maybe one of them is going to have these conditions by chance. There's a number of problems with this called the multiverse theory. One of the problems is there's no evidence for it. It's pure speculation. We can't observe these other universes. Second problem with it is that it would seem that if these other universes are out there, they would need to be created too. So you don't seem to get rid of the need for a creator. You multiply the need for a creator, right? So, and there's many other problems as well with the theory. So that's what they've tried to do to avoid the implications of design. But no, this one universe is so precisely tweaked that secular scientists are going to these extreme measures to avoid the obvious implication that it's designed.
This is how finely tuned the accuracy of 1 in 10 to the 37 is. If we were to take the entire North American continent, that's not just the United States, that's Canada, Alaska, Mexico, all the Central American continents, if we were to take the continent, the North American continent, and cover it in dimes, and now stack those dimes to the moon, which is 239,000 miles, we're not done yet. Now do that 1 million more times on a continent the size of North America, and then put a red X on one of those dimes, stir them all up, and put a blindfold on somebody and tell them to go out and find the dime. The odds that that person finds that dime is the odds that this happened by chance. Crazy. 1 million continents stacked with dimes to the moon, 239,000 miles high. That
Cover the entire North American continent from the equator to Greenland in dimes up to the moon. That's like 230-something thousand miles in dimes up to the moon. Then do that on 1 billion other North American continents. Mix all those dimes together in one huge pile, mark one of them red, mix that red one in, blindfold a friend, throw them in the pile, tell them to randomly pick one dime.
Frank Turek. No wonder my stomach was churning. Farmer Josh is ripping off bigoted charlatan Frank Turek, too. Goes hand in hand with ripping off birds of a feather like Ken Ham, I guess. I thought this sounded familiar, but couldn't quite place it. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. Frank's strawmanning of atheists and scientists and fellow human beings he has never met and knows nothing about, that he also intentionally lies about, as he grifts his books to the misinformed he is misinforming. For shame, Farmer Josh, as you are repeating it.
I'll tell you a little story that I heard from Frank Turek, who's an apologist, wrote the book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. Great book. As a resource that you can grab and read and dive through. It's a little bit heady. You'll have to probably read I'd had to read pages multiple times to really kind of chew on it and grasp it. But he tells the story of a friend of his who was invited by a college professor teaching evolution, invited, to his credit, somebody who discredits evolution to come and share that information with his class. So to his credit, he said, hey, let's get a differing opinion in here. So the guy comes in and shares all of this information about how evolution cannot possibly be true. Afterwards, they go out to lunch. The guy who gives the lecture, that evolution is not true, asked the professor who invited him, hey, what did you think? Well, what did you think of the lecture? He says, no, I thought it was really good. Yeah, I mean, the evidence for evolution is really bad. And the guy said, well, why do you keep teaching it? He said, because if evolution is true, I can sleep with whoever I want to sleep with.
Farmer Josh teaches about a man who's a professor of biology who only taught so that he could sleep with whoever he wants. Yeah. What this means is that biology is just one big scam. I don't know who pays for it, man. But it's all so that we can have sex with whoever we want, man. That's the government's plan. Been that way since 1955. 1955. I know you might not have been alive, but in 1955 they declared we want to have sex with whoever we want. Let's fund science, see what they've got. Make sure that they teach that evolution is true. Teach it in every single school. Epstein heard about it, started an island. But never mind that, he killed himself. Erase that from history. Doesn't really matter, everyone is lying just to have sex with whoever they want. Yeah, sex with whoever they want. Whoo, yeah, that's why we do science every day. It's just so we can have sex with whoever we want. bum, bum, ba, da, 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 da. Here's Richard Dawkins. He teaches evolution so that he can have sex with whoever he wants. Yeah, that's the only reason he wants to have sex with lots of people. No other reason, man. That's why he's Steeple. Steeple? That doesn't really make any sense, but that's okay, man. Let me tell you about Hawkins. Stephen Hawking's black holes. What do you think a black hole is? That's right. It's a butt. It's where you go poop from. That's what a black hole is. He wrote about them so he could have sex with whoever he wanted. Probably Neil deGrasse Tyson. Oh yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson. You know, he be tossin' the salad all the time, of everybody all the time. That's why he teaches science, so he can have sex with whoever he wants. Yeah, sex with whoever he wants. Einstein! We all know Einstein equals AMC squared. But you might not know that Einstein made that shit up so that he could have sex up with whoever would make him throw up, including his cousin. That's actually true. Einstein just did it so he could screw. Oh, all of science is one big sham, so we can have sex every day, man. We didn't go to the moon, that shit isn't true. We made it up so that we can screw you. Yeah, everything in science is a lie. Computers aren't real, they're alive. That's right, computers are a lie. I almost said alive. Maybe I said alive the first time. Doesn't really matter. Whatever. We made them up so we could have sex. Everything you have is ran on magic little pixies. Yes, magic little pixies that need you to have sex with whoever you want. Otherwise, your machine stops working. Yeah, that's why we made it all up. Every bit, everything. We're related to whatever so you can swing. Not from tree to tree, but from man to woman, or woman to man, or kid to adult. No one needs to understand whatever you put it in or get put into you. It's all subjective, so why don't you just make up stuff so you can have sex if you want, whoever you want, yeah, yeah, yeah. 'Cause we all know that religion, yeah, especially Christianity, has never, ever used any of its stuff to be able to get sex with anyone ever. That's why they don't procreate. They don't have sex ever. It's not too late. Join us, be a Christian. Stop having sex altogether. Worship God. Worship God. Cut off your foreskin. Worship God. What the hell is up with the foreskin? Don't ever do anything that God doesn't tell you to do. So if God says to have sex with someone, even if that contradicts everything else that we said, you better have sex with someone. But religion never does that. No, that doesn't happen. I mean, come on.
Oh, Deconverted Man, you came through again. Thank you very much. I needed that. Settled my stomach right down. As much as I enjoy your singing, I think I have kept you long enough, Deconverted Man. I'm sure there are apologists out there stirring up some kind of baloney you need to attend to. Thank you for stopping by.
Anytime, Captive Desk. Now, I must be adieu, for there is logic to do adieu. For do, lido, do-do-do, do-do, do-do-do-do-do. Lobster away! Open window first.
Wait. No. Yeah, he's all right. Deconverted Man is all right. He shook it off and is airborne again. Hello, Acme Glass Replacement. This is the Captive Desk. Yeah, he did it again. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. That would be great. Thank you very much.
fuck me in the ass. And I'm fine with them being wrong, because then that means we learn something new as a collective humanity. Fuck me.
As much as I enjoy your singing, I think I have kept you long enough, Deconverted Man, and I am sure there are apologists out there stirring up some baloney you need to attend to. All right, take two. As much as I enjoy your singing, Deconverted Man, I think I have kept you long enough. Messed it up again.
Yes, Captive Death. Fuck me. Yes, Captive Desk, I think you're right. It's a lot of repeating the same things, like repeating the same things. Sometimes you repeat the same things. When you repeat the same things over and over again, it can be really annoying. I hate when people repeat the same things, don't you? Repeat the same things. Just do what they do so that they can get something out of it. Like math teachers only teach math so that they can add stuff. And history teachers only teach history so they can history stuff. So wouldn't it be sex ed teachers that would be teaching sex ed so that they could get sex? I don't know, Frank. Seems like you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Scene or a sunset at the beach, where you get to see a bee sucking nectar.
Look at the fucking trees! Look at the trees! Oh my god, the trees! Ah, the trees! The trees!
What physicists say is there are four fundamental forces that govern the Take two.
What is truth? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. What's this? Oh, this is from Captive Desk. Hold on a second. Do not sing in my video. Please, Deconverted Man, I want your help, but whatever you do, do not, under any circumstances, sing in the video that you're going to do for me and or help me with. In fact, never sing in any of your videos, please, for the love of humanity.